You are very endeavor, but the game is over. I can't let you fall my work. Go hell. Gameplay-wise, it's a complete mess. What are these people doing? Hey guys, do you like Mega Man? Well, if you're like me, you probably grew up playing a wide variety of fun, iconic games that would go on to define the industry. But for a lot of players across the pond, many of these games were just out of reach. Not every country had access to these titles, and even if they did, it was often years after the fact, or with some pretty significant changes. So in regions where the Mega Man series and other platforming icons were not officially released, some companies took matters into their own hands and created something totally different. And that's how we got games like Zook Hero Z. This game was developed by vast fame and released in Taiwan in 1999 for the Game Boy Color, and is the first in a series of 4 games featuring everyone's favorite blue boy, Zook. Or Zook. I don't know how to pronounce this.
Zook.
Okay, apparently this means his name is Luke, but Zook sounds funnier, so I'm gonna call him that from now on. Being a bootleg, the game actually goes by a few different names, including Rockman DX6, Rockman DX8, and just Zook Z for the new GB color, which made hunting down these games kinda difficult and confusing. Booting it up, we're greeted by this cool cutscene that's in Japanese for some reason, even though this was never released in Japan. And a lot of the text is unreadable, with incorrect characters and spelling errors all over the place. Apparently, the story is about a policeman named Zook, and one day, an evil scientist named Dr. Mitt unleashes an army of robots to conquer the world. When Zook tries to stop them, he gets shot and is recovered by another scientist named Dr. Meki, who turns him into a robot hero, a Zook hero. I still don't know what the Z is supposed to mean, but I guess we'll just ignore that. The level design and visuals really give off that classic NES Mega Man vibe. Zook himself looks like a janky bootleg Mega Man sprite, and the whole game feels like a shameless knockoff of the real thing. But honestly, it's not too bad. The graphics look pretty decent in some stages, albeit a little generic. Enemy sprites feel uninspired and lack the kind of character and charm that a lot of Mega Man enemies have. The same can also be said about the game's soundtrack. You won't find any great boss themes or memorable stage music or anything, but it is serviceable, and for a Game Boy Color game, I think it's fine enough. Gameplay-wise, it combines elements from both the classic and X series. You've got your standard running, jumping, and sliding, but you can also dash and do wall jumps like in Mega Man X, and I honestly had more fun than I was expecting to. It has the foundation of a real Mega Man game, and it does feel like one. However, the experience wasn't perfect. Platforming can be kinda wonky at times. Like in most platformers, you can tap the jump button to do a quick hop, or you can hold it down to do a long jump. However, the quick jump is too small for most gaps, and the long jump requires you to hold down the button for just a little longer than you would normally expect. This makes the timing feel weirdly unintuitive in some sections, and definitely requires some getting used to. It also doesn't help that the dash has no dedicated button, meaning you have to double tap the D-pad. I personally never liked doing it this way in the Mega Man X games either, because it makes it way too easy to accidentally dash when you're just trying to adjust your positioning. The layouts can also be downright unfair at times, with spikes being placed directly in front of you when the screen scrolls over to the next section. I mean, look at this, it's evil! How are you supposed to anticipate that? This is unfortunately a common occurrence in the game, and there are also sections like this, where a ledge is placed right at the apex of your jump, meaning you need to perfectly set up your jump to avoid hitting both the ceiling and the spikes on the floor. This makes a lot of the stages feel difficult for the wrong reasons, and the game requires extensive trial and error to get through. And on top of that, it can also be hard to tell which objects are in the background and which ones actually have collisions on them. When dealing with enemies, you'll notice the hitboxes feel a little off, as some of your attacks won't register when they should still be clipping the enemy. But even with all of that in mind, it's not terrible. It still feels like a Mega Man game, and the additional movement options from X put a nice twist on the classic formula. It's definitely not perfect by any means, but honestly, If I had never played a Mega Man game before, or Mega Man didn't even exist in my country and this was all I had, I might still have a lot of fun with this and think it's pretty good. And keep in mind, this is only the first game in a quadrilogy of titles. The developers at Vast Fame clearly must have made vast improvements and taken things a step further for the sequel. Right? So this is Zook Hero 2, also known as Rockman D3 depending on which version you play. Right off the bat, we're greeted with a flashy cutscene showing off all of the bosses along with our two playable heroes, Zook 1 and Zook 2. The game offers two modes where you can choose your character, and at first it feels like Mega Man X4 where you can pick between X and Zero with different playstyles and abilities. But don't get too excited, they're exactly the same. One's red and the other's purple. That's it. Both of them look different from Zook in the first game, so I guess these are different characters? It's not really explained. Now, the sequel does introduce a save feature and extra checkpoints, which is great because somehow the level design has gotten even worse than the first game. Instead of unfair spike traps killing you out of nowhere, this time it's the enemy placement that's out to get you. Enemies will spawn from off screen with zero warning, often right where you're about to move as the screen scrolls, making it almost impossible to avoid taking damage. Movement is also kinda glitchy at times. For instance, I noticed that pressing the jump button while climbing a ladder causes you to clip through walls. The mini-bosses are also totally broken this time around, as the majority of their attacks are completely unavoidable. The boss fights on the other hand are pretty easy though, as they all follow a set pattern that's pretty easy to pick up on. They also get paralyzed with every attack from your buster, so it was honestly a lot easier than I was expecting. It's just a shame that most of them are nearly impossible to get to because of the broken mini-bosses you have to deal with beforehand. Speaking of enemies, they also made Data from Mega Man Legends into an enemy, which I thought was pretty funny. Overall, I'd say it's a disappointing departure from the first game and a lot less enjoyable. But you know what they say, third time's the charm. Yeah, I might have to take back everything I said about the earlier games. Have you ever booted up a game and thought to yourself, this just feels wrong? Well, I present to you Zook Hero 3, also known as Super Rockman. It was made by a different developer this time around, called Syntax. Man, Zook really looks like he's struggling. The title screen uses a ripped sprite from Mega Man Extreme 2, and the main menu features an image of Iris taken from the same game. Gameplay-wise, it's a complete mess. All the mechanics that made the first two titles interesting are gone. No dash, no wall jump, no slide, you can't even charge your Mega Buster. Instead, Zook now curls into a ball when crouching. You know, like Metroid. What are these people doing? The frame rate and animations are also really choppy, and moving the character around feels super floaty. The camera is also positioned so high that you can never really tell what's below you, making it very easy to unknowingly fall to your death. Spikes will also insta-kill you even if you have invincibility frames after taking a hit, which is really annoying. On top of that, the enemies are also a total mess. You've got enemy sprites ripped straight from mainline Mega Man games, and some of them can't even be killed. Others just don't function the way you'd expect, like the shield guys who can't actually block anything and they don't even turn around after you pass them. The whole experience feels like my first attempt at using Game Maker, and everything just feels off. The game is barely playable and it's by far the worst of the bunch. But it's not the last one. Well, actually it is, but it also isn't. You'll see what I mean. The last game we're going to be looking at is Zookman ZX4, also known as Rockman and Crystal, also known as Battle Network Rockman Crystal. Aside from being released on the GBA, it has no relation whatsoever to the Battle Network series, and the alternate title, ZX4, suggests that this is the fourth game in the series, but it was actually released in 2003, 1 year before Zook Hero 3, so the fourth game is actually the third game in the series. It was also the last game made by Vast Fame, which means I'm already expecting it to be better than Zook Hero 3. Being released on the GBA means the game received a massive visual upgrade, with Zook now having a new character sprite right, and at a glance, the game looks pretty good, until you realize that most of the artwork has been stolen from other Mega Man games. Now, of course, this has been a common thread among all these games, but it is especially noticeable this time around. Many of the stage designs and most of the enemy sprites have been taken directly from official Mega Man games, and as you'd expect, the game is very buggy and doesn't behave properly. Similar to the previous entry in the series, most enemies work completely differently from the games they've been ripped out of, and the mini-bosses are still broken. Some of them are recycled from previous titles, while others are original? What is this supposed to be? He reminds me of one of those bosses from Sonic Advance, but with a stupid eyeball. Sometimes the mini-bosses won't even appear until you're already halfway across the room, meaning they'll usually spawn right on top of you and damage you. The stage bosses also have dialogue before you fight them, which is a really nice touch, even if it doesn't make sense most of the time. Zook! Its end! T-Meduor won't let you move on. You are very endeavor, but the game is over. I can't let you fall my work. Go hell! The bosses aren't too difficult, as again their patterns are very predictable and can be avoided by just hugging the wall, but they are massive bullet sponges. Their health meter is the same size as yours, but they require significantly more hits to take away just one bar. Platforming is also unfortunately kind of broken here too. While there's no Metroid Morph Ball mechanic this time, and we do have all the controls of a typical Mega Man X game, it is still hard to get around as most of the collisions are just totally broken. Enemies can phase through walls, and so can you sometimes, but the worst part is most ledges don't have collisions where you'd expect them to, so even the most basic platforming sections are really tedious. At first, I was really excited to try this one out. With the visual upgrades and the Game Boy Advance hardware, it looked really cool. But man, it feels like it was either rushed out or they just didn't put any effort into actually finishing this one. Which is something I guess all these games have in common, but still, I would say it is just ever so slightly better than Zook Hero 3, since this one at least feels like a video game.
Sucks ass!
And there you have it. That was the Zook series. Against all odds and probably international copyright laws, it exists. Is it good? No. Is it playable? Sometimes. But is it fascinating? Absolutely. Every game feels like it was made by someone with amnesia, who only vaguely remembers what Mega Man is supposed to be like. Out of all four of these games, I'd have to say Zook Hero Z is by far the best of these bootleg disasters, and it's honestly the only one I would recommend you guys check out. The sequel was pretty forgettable, and I'd only recommend playing the third and fourth games if you hate yourself. Now, if any of you actually grew up playing these games, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because I cannot imagine what it must have been like having this as your introduction to the Mega Man series. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and as always, don't go hell.